Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. Today on the show, what's wrong with the Timberwolves defense? I'll tell you exactly what's wrong and also why it's fixable for Minnesota. We'll also dig in on the offense a bit. It's all coming next.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. That's right. We are #1, where we should be. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy weekend. And finally, happy Timberwolves game day. The Wolves have not played since Monday. We get 2 in a row. We get tonight. We get tomorrow. Second time the Timberwolves have played Denver this year. And yes, it's the second time they played the Nuggets on the second night of a back-to-back. But, what do you know? The Timberwolves got a tough draw when it came to the schedule. That happens sometimes or every year with the Wolves. Anyway, let's talk about the Timberwolves defense today. Not where we all expected it to be, right? We thought Minnesota would be a good defensive team. They were first in the league 2 years ago, 6th last year. They are just 17th right now on cleaning the glass in defense. I want to dig in on why that is. I've got a couple of reasons. We'll dig into some of the different play types they've struggled with a bit, but then also some cause for optimism, why I think Minnesota will ultimately be a much better defensive team than what they've showed to this point. I'm not saying they're going to be #1. I don't think anyone's unseated in OKC, but the defense should be a lot better, and I think it will. I'll tell you why. We'll also talk about the offense, what's gone really well for a top 3 offense right now for Minnesota in the league, and an offense that I said before the season I thought would finish top 5. We'll dig in on all that today. We'll also peek ahead to the games tonight and tomorrow. It's all upcoming here today on the show. A big thank you off the top for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. You can listen wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also watch over on YouTube. All right. Let's go ahead and dig in on this defense. What's wrong with the defense? As mentioned a moment ago, sitting here right now and cleaning the glass, the Timberwolves are the 17th ranked defense in the league in terms of points allowed per 100 possessions. They, last year they were 6th. 2 years ago, they were 1st by far. Even in their first year under Chris Finch without Rudy Gobert, they were I think 14th or 15th when that was all said and done. First year with Gobert, they hovered around 9th or 10th. Rudy Gobert in his career has only one time not finished the season as part of a top 10 defense. And if you take out his rookie season when he was a very part-time bench player, but since he's been a regular rotation guy, he's only one time in his career not been part of a top 10 defense. I always say he's a walking top 10 defense. Chris Finch was on the Zach Lowe podcast the other day, and it actually called Rudy a walking top 5 defense. So there you go. There's no excuse for Minnesota to be 17th. Why is that? Well, I dug in a bit further on synergy, and I looked at a few of the different play types that they're struggling with the most. And I've got a couple of symptoms here, or I guess causes that are causing the symptom. Whatever. That analogy didn't work the way I wanted it to. But I've got a couple of reasons why they've been so bad defensively. We can start here. The way Minnesota's defending pick and rolls has not been good. Defending pick and roll ball handlers, Minnesota right now is 28th in the NBA. Actually, they didn't play. I pulled these numbers before the games on Thursday night. They're actually 27th now. So by not playing the last couple of days, they've improved to 27th in terms of points per possession on pick and roll to pick and roll ball handlers. So when breaking that down a little bit further, when facing an opposing pick and roll, Minnesota allows the 4th most points per possession. So 4th worst, to pick and roll ball handlers. 2 of the teams that are worse than them, by the way, are the Pelicans and Pacers, not teams you want to be in the same conversation or the same sentence with. And because of that, Minnesota faces a lot of pick and rolls because teams are we know we could do this. So they're actually 6th, tied for 6th in the most pick and rolls faced in terms of percentage of opponent possessions because they're struggling to handle the pick and roll. Why is that? Well, and actually, along with that, we might as well talk about the handoffs now, too. Pick and roll, off of handoffs, which a handoff is essentially, it functions like a screen, right? In Minnesota, on the flip side, and I think we'll get into this a little bit today, Anthony Edwards has always been fantastic off of handoffs. And I remember 2-3 years ago when he was struggling surveying the floor as a pick and roll ball handler. And I was kind of harping on, look, the Wolves should just run more dribble handoffs. Rudy's really good at it as the handoff guy. He's a wide body guy. He's good at kind of getting in the way. The Kevin Garnett, like spread your elbows and knees and not get caught for it. Rudy's good at that. And Ant is much better when he just gets downhill. Now, he's obviously improved as a playmaker, but he's still much better. If you look at the individual player numbers, Ant is much better in a dribble handoff situation than he is as a pick and roll ball handler. The reason why is you take that handoff and you essentially just go to the rim. It's like you're taking a quick corner. Whereas as a pick and roll ball handler, there's a wider swath of options for you. And in some ways, it's just maybe overwhelming because of all the different options. But it's a dribble handoff. You're not necessarily expecting to pass the ball back to the guy giving you the handoff because that roll isn't quite as clean. It's not usually as successful. I mean, you can do it, but it's not functioning the same way. That the spacing isn't the same as it is on a traditional pick and roll. But otherwise, the handoff acts as a screen, and the guy getting the ball could basically just get downhill immediately. And so on defense, similar to pick and roll, guarding a pick and roll ball handler, Minnesota is 28th. So they're 27th in guarding pick and roll ball handlers, and they're 28th in guarding ball handlers off of handoff action, behind only the Lakers and the Magic, which is interesting that the Magic are so low there. But this is a smaller sample. Teams run, there's less plays classified as like, in terms of percentage of plays faced, the pick and roll thing is like 17%, and the dribble handoff is like 5%. But either way, they're bottom 4 in both. And why is that? I think the biggest thing is the loss of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And this is where that's really showing up. Nickeil was the best in the league. A couple years ago, 2 seasons ago, Jaden and Nickeil were literally the top 2 in the league at defending pick and rolls. I don't know what the final number was last year for Jaden, but Nickeil was right at the top of the league again in defending pick and roll ball handlers, at fighting through screens. That was his number one, is still his number one skill, I'm sure, is navigating screens. And losing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you've lost your best screen navigator. And yeah, he only played 20-some minutes a game, but it really does add up. And then the second thing is Jaden McDaniels is playing less at the point of attack. And that's by design. Minnesota sees Jaden as more of a free safety, kind of wreak havoc all over the floor. And he is doing that. The block rate's up. The steal rate is up for Jaden. We talked about this the other day. So the early returns are positive there, but you got to give something to get something. Or that's one way to look at it. Or you're cannibalizing your point of attack defense, but you're making your off-ball defense better, which is good because Minnesota's off-ball defense has long been pretty subpar, even when the defense overall was good. They were bad at defending off-ball stuff. You know, Anthony Edwards is a big part of that, although he's improved there a little bit this year. So Jaden less at the point of attack, less matters. In fact, Jaden has less than 10 possessions all year guarding pick and roll ball handlers. And I know this because I tried to find on Synergy where he ranked, and he doesn't show up. He has less than 10 possessions guarding pick and roll ball handlers, according to Synergy, so far this season, which surprised me. But I refreshed it several times. I made sure I had the filters right. Not popping up. So less Jaden at the point of attack and no Nickeil Alexander-Walker are the primary 2 reasons. In isolation, the Timberwolves are still defending really well. In transition, they've actually been pretty good too. And in pick and roll, ball handlers aren't doing much against the Wolves, or excuse me, the roll men aren't doing much against the Wolves either. They're guarding the roller fairly well. And actually, the play a couple of games ago, I can't remember if it might have been the first Kings game or the second Jazz game. This Kings Jazz thing is getting to me. Or Jazz Kings. One of those games recently when the Timberwolves, I think it was the Kings game. Sabonis was rolling and Ant jumped the pass. But if you watch it back, both Ant and I think it was Nas or whoever else was on the floor, or maybe it was Rudy, were both reacting to the roller instead of staying home. And reacting to the roller is not something Minnesota has been good at in the past. So it's a little frustrating. It's like they're playing whack-a-mole with these problems, but they're defending the roll better. They're defending in isolation very well, which is a credit to Jaden. It's a credit to Anthony Edwards. It's a credit to Jalen Clark, and also Dante DiVincenzo has been pretty good in terms of one-on-one defense. What's killing them is the pick and roll stuff and the handoffs. It's the ball handlers getting downhill and not being able to stay in front of them, navigate screens and navigate handoffs in the same way that Nickeil Alexander-Walker has, did for the Wolves last 2.5 years, and how Jaden McDaniels does when he's at the point of attack. That I don't know. Like, that's not my solution, right? Like, what do you do with that? Losing Nikhil, you can't fix that. I mean, one option is putting Jaden McDaniels at the point of attack more, but I don't think they want to do that. And I don't necessarily think they need to give that up. My solution here is they just need Ant, DiVincenzo, and Conley to be better, and they need to play Jalen Clark more. This is a legit concern. I think I underestimated. I'm not going to say I underestimated the impact of losing Nikhil, because I think I properly estimated that overall. Like, for instance, I thought the Wolves offense would be better, and guess what? It has been so far. Small sample size theater, yes, through 11 games, but I was right there. I think I underestimated this very specific skill that Nikhil was the best at, and that's navigating screens and dribble handoffs. I do have some cause for optimism. I want to get to another layer of why the Timberwolves defense is struggling, and I have a reason why I think we could be optimistic there, and I think there will be a bit of a bounce back, which will overall lift the Timberwolves defense, or the bottom line of the Timberwolves defense, if you will. We'll take a look at that here next. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our new friends at DripDrop. When you're hydrated, everything just works better. Speaking for myself, my focus, energy, mood, even my skin. And that's why I've been using DripDrop. They were fantastic. They sent us a case of some DripDrop, and it is wonderful. It is doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. DripDrop is not your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. You can use DripDrop as part of your daily routine. Maybe just mix a pack in the morning before you go to the gym, or the midday slump, which typically will get me. Also, honestly, what's most important to me is that it actually tastes amazing. All the flavors are fantastic. It'll be your secret weapon for staying sharp and energized throughout a long day. Hydration is non-negotiable, and DripDrop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. Right now, DripDrop is offering our podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's DripDrop.com. Promo code LOCKEDONNBA for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard, and keep your body and mind performing at their best with DripDrop. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is also brought to us by our friends at Wayfair. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. The best part is that you don't have to wait for the holidays to actually roll around. Right now, Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. You can upgrade whatever it is around your house before you have guests over for the holidays, completely transform your rooms. Perhaps the best thing right now is how quickly things ship. Thanksgiving's coming up in just a couple of weeks. Get your stuff now to get it before the holidays. You can find anything you need for your home at Wayfair. If you've ever hosted family for the holidays, you know how much of a difference a few new touches can make. Wayfair makes it easy. Don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. All right. Big thank you once again for making Locked On Wolves your first listen of the day. And thank you once again as well for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We could not do it without you, the listener. It is greatly appreciated. Let's dig back in on the Timberwolves defense. We talked already about the inability to defend the pick and roll and dribble handoff actions. The other thing that I thought was pretty interesting, and all those, the numbers I cited a minute ago were over at Synergy. We're going to jump over to, actually, numbers are very similar here for cleaning the glass and Synergy. But on cleaning the glass, I was digging into the types of shots the Timberwolves are giving up as a defense. And what stuck out to me was something that they've been pretty good at the last couple of years that all of a sudden now isn't great. And that's defending specific shots on the floor, specifically corner threes and mid-range shots. So in terms of frequency, we know Minnesota is more than happy to give up mid-range shots. That's by design. It's still the case. They've adjusted their defense. Last year, Rudy started playing at the level more. They started switching more versus playing a deep drop. They still drop. It depends on the opponent, which is smart. Like, I think that makes sense. In general, though, Minnesota is not unlike any other team. They're more than happy to give up mid-range looks. They are pretty middle of the pack, actually, this year in terms of frequency of giving up mid-range looks. But what's weird is how accurate opponents have been from the mid-range. Opponents are making mid-range jumpers against the Timberwolves. And that is, it's not what you want. So the defense frequency-wise, they're, like I said, pretty middle of the pack. Overall mid-range, they're actually 12th in percentage of mid-range shots allowed. So maybe even a little bit more allowed than would be ideal. Accuracy-wise, though, they're bottom 10. In fact, all mid-range jumpers, they're 24th in the league in opponent percentage, meaning opponents are making nearly 45% of mid-range shots. That's a high number. League average is just over 43%. So opponents are about 1.5 percentage points better from the mid-range overall than league average against Minnesota. That could be a little bit of schematic stuff. Hat tip JJ Redick for the use of the word schematics. I have to every time. It's trademarked by Redick, I'm pretty sure. By the way, if you listened to the Zach Lowe show the other day and heard Chris Finch, there was an immediate JJ Redick stray by Chris Finch. It was amazing. If you missed it, real quickly, he made a joke about how by being a podcaster, you're immediately qualified to be an NBA to coach the Lakers specifically. So obviously Finch coached JJ in New Orleans, so they've got a relationship. Don't know if JJ loves that or loves the joke or not, but I thought it was great. I'm pro JJ Redick jokes on this podcast. If you've listened to the show since the playoffs last year, you know all the schematic stuff that JJ Redick was just flummoxed by. Anyway, so mid-range jumpers allowed by design. Weirdly, they've allowed a worse than league average, or technically better from the offensive side than league average from the mid-range. I think that's a little bit fluky. I think it gets better, and I think they do a better job at the type of mid-range shots that they allow. The bigger issue has been corner threes. Minnesota has allowed far more corner threes than would be ideal. And accuracy-wise, Minnesota is 28th. And sorry, I said that the wrong way. Opponents shoot the third best against Minnesota from the corners of any team in the NBA. Like, for instance, Chicago's number one at defending the corner three. Opponents are shooting under 29% from the corners against the Bulls. Minnesota's 28th. Opponents are shooting over 44% from the corners. League average on corner threes is 38% this year. 38% right now. Minnesota's allowing over 44%. Corner three defense is important. I think it's more fluky than anything else. And I don't think that's across the board true about three-point shooting. I say that fully knowing that last year I made the case, because Minnesota was so good at defending the three-point line, that it wasn't fluky, that there's a rhyme and reason and technique to defending the three-point line. And I believe that. I think that's more true above the break than it is in the corners. Corner threes tend to be a little more open because of the design of the floor, right? You don't have somebody glued to the corner defensively. That's not good defensive floor balance, right? It's more of a contest situation, or you're getting through a screen, and there's obviously technique there, but there's less actions run specifically for corner threes. That's more of a drive and kick situation, or we're pushing the ball in transition and somebody runs to the corner. Now that's the new running to the rim in transition. It's running to the corner. It's different. It's just a little bit different. And there is some technique. We're still only 11 games in, so there's some noise there in terms of the sample size. But Minnesota last season was 9th in corner three-point percentage, just 38% allowed. And overall from three, they were 35.8% allowed. Okay. This year, they're 44% allowed from the corners, which again is unusual. Overall, they're 12th because they've been really good above the break, which I think further proves the point that there's some flukiness involved here, because they're right in line. They're actually better above the break defensively than they were last year, but they're terrible from the corners. I think it's more small sample size noise, some variance that'll even out. And it's cause for hope when it comes to the Timberwolves defense. I would identify guarding the pick and roll ball handler and ball handlers off of handoff actions, and guarding the corner three as the two biggest problems for Minnesota. This side of defensive rebounding, which we've talked plenty about, it continues to be a problem, and it will be a problem. That I think is less fixable. They just need the guards and wings to rebound better. That's it. They just need these guys to rebound better. And I don't know we're going to get that. I don't know that we're going to get that. So I'm more concerned about the fixable stuff. The corner threes, I think there just may be a bounce back there in a positive direction for Minnesota. And so I'm setting that one aside. But identifying it as part of the cause for this middle of the pack defense so far, which, by the way, is going to get better as they play these, generally bad teams over the next week and a half, the Denver back-to-back on Saturday notwithstanding. But the mid-range stuff, they could do better at contesting in the mid-range. I think that's a real thing. And ultimately, I think those percentages, those opponent shooting percentages will flatline a little bit, will even out a little bit. And that'll be a good thing for Minnesota's defense overall. The bottom line, if you will, of Minnesota's defense, I still think they end up as a top 10 defense. I do. It's going to take a minute, but they're going to make some progress here between now and Thanksgiving. They play the Thunder, 12 days from now, but who's counting? Thanksgiving Eve, they play the Thunder. Between now and then, they're going to be favored in every game except the Denver game, I think. And they need to make some hay, and defensively especially. I'm not really going to dig in on the offense today. We're going to run out of time for that. I'll hit it here shortly. Briefly, I should say, just real quickly, because it's gone really well. So I'll hit what they've been the best at. And then we'll get into, just very quickly, again, the preview for tonight's game as well as Saturday's game against the Nuggets. We'll do that all here next to close out the show. Today's episode of Locked On Wolves is brought to us by our friends at DoorDash. The NBA season is heating up. We're now, a month in? And DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, your favorite player, or maybe your favorite team, which is why you're probably listening to this podcast, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, something we've seen several times already this season, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff that you'll actually want. It's not just food either. You can order everything, snacks, drinks, headphones, ice, whatever. You get it all delivered through DoorDash. DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double OT fuel-ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use the promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only. 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. Today's episode is also brought to us by our friends at FanDuel. The NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of any given game or you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Looking at the Timberwolves game tonight, let's see, Minnesota at home against the Kings. They are favored by 12.5 points at home against Sacramento with 3 days rest. I think Minnesota wins this game. I don't love the minus 12.5. I think with multiple days rest, it may take Minnesota a minute. I know it's a sweet spot for the Timberwolves to have enough effort and energy, but not be rusty. And I think I kind of like Kings plus 12.5. I think Minnesota wins. That money line, though, is minus 590. You're not a whole lot of value there. I think Minnesota wins, but it's closer than 12.5 points. But live betting the game, which you can also do, see how the game gets off to a start, maybe take Minnesota money line if they get down after the first quarter. That wouldn't be the worst idea. Live betting the game keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late push like the Timberwolves may do tonight. Just have a feeling. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, real quickly on the Timberwolves offense, there's not a whole lot of dissecting that needs to be done here. We're not trying to diagnose a problem. We know the Timberwolves offense is great. In fact, being idle this week took them from 4th to 3rd in the NBA and cleaning the glass in terms of points per 100 possessions. But I wanted to call out just how good they've been in certain situations. In isolation, they're fantastic. I believe, let me see if I can pull it up real quickly. I believe they're number one overall as a team in isolation situations. And a huge part of that is Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, for that matter. They're number 2 next to Denver in terms of points per possession in isolation. And Julius Randle is right up there. Julius Randle is number, let's see, where'd it go? I was going to pull the actual Julius Randle number and it's not refreshing like I expect. There we go. Julius Randle's number 3 in points per possession in isolation. AJ Mitchell, and very limited possessions, is number 1. Jokic only does this 1 possession per game, but he's number 2. Randle is 3rd, and his frequency is over 4 per game, like by far greater than anybody else on this list. In fact, you have to get down to Pascal Siakam at number 13 in points per possession to find somebody who does it as often as Julius Randle. Like, Julius Randle isolates a ton, and he is putting up 1.422 points per possession when he does so. Ant is at 22nd in the league. The frequency is even higher for Ant. He's just over 1.06 points per, almost 1.07 points per possession. So he's 22nd in the league. But if you have the guy who's number 3 and the guy who's number 22, and they both do it a lot, guess what? You're the number 2 team in the league when it comes to overall points per possession in isolation. And Minnesota is behind only the Denver Nuggets. And Minnesota has more possessions in isolation than Denver does by far. In fact, almost twice as many per game. Okay, so isolation is leading the charge there. Handoff situations, same deal. I talked about this earlier from the defensive side, that Minnesota is struggling to guard those situations. They continue to be awesome in offensive dribble handoff situations. Not surprising, given how good we know Anthony Edwards is doing exactly that. Minnesota is 3rd in dribble handoff situations as an offense. Again, according to Synergy, not surprising. They're 2nd. They moved up. I just refreshed it. They're 2nd in the league in both. So in isolation and in handoff situations, due to Anthony Edwards, due to Julius Randle, and then as pick and roll ball handlers. This is interesting too, because Ant is not nearly as efficient still there. Minnesota's number 4 in points per possession in pick and roll ball handling situations, behind only the Lakers, Nuggets, and Thunder, 3 pretty good teams to be behind. And Jaden McDaniels is phenomenal. And the volume is still relatively low for Jaden, but he's the Timberwolves' number 1. In fact, he's number 2 in the entire league right now in terms of points per possession and pick and roll, behind, you'll never guess, Duncan Robinson of the Detroit Pistons. Jaden McDaniels is number 2, 1.44 points per possession as a pick and roll ball handler. So as a team, they're top 5 in isolation. They're actually number 2. They're number 2 in handoff situations. They're number 4 in pick and roll ball handlers. They're doing really well offensively. Like, there's no other way to slice and dice that. We don't have to get into that any further, other than it's been great. The shooting, obviously, we got to hope that stays sustainable, that is sustainable for Minnesota. Of course, they're still a top 3% three-point shooting team, and we just don't know how sustainable that is. I think it's fairly sustainable. I think they'll be good from outside the arc. But something to, I think they'll be good as the season wears on, I should say, from outside the arc. But it's something to keep an eye on for sure. All right, very quickly, previewing the Kings game for tonight. Of course, we just saw the Kings the other night. Minnesota won by 27 in Sacramento on, was that Sunday? Doesn't matter. I think it was. And it was really good. He had 26 on 16 shots. Jaden was phenomenal. 21 on 10 shots, just like the perfect Jaden game. And then the perfect, like, unassuming Rudy game, 19, 12, and 5 blocks. I shouldn't say unassuming. He really did dominate the paint in that game. Certainly an opponent Minnesota should beat easily. The Kings are relatively healthy, but we know that they're going to get to the mid-range. They're going to have the DeRozan-Levine mid-range stuff. Levine's going to shoot some threes. Rudy gets up for playing Sabonis. That's going to be fun. We know that is the case, so we have that to look forward to. It's kind of the same stuff that we said a few days ago related to this matchup. Sabonis, by the way, is listed as questionable for the game, so there's a chance he doesn't even play, which I guess that could be why that line is so high. I talked about this a little bit ago, that it's at 12.5. And Malik Monk, by the way, is also questionable. So notable coming into this game, Sabonis is probably afraid of catching Rudy once again. But in this, like, for Minnesota against this opponent, like, the Kings don't offensive rebound, which is great because Minnesota gives up a lot of offensive rebounds. The Kings don't get to the line that much, which is great because the Wolves have been known to allow teams to shoot a lot of free throws. This is a bottom 5 offense right now, which is a tough, like, if you're going to have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis on your team, 3 noted poor defensive players at this stage, and Russell Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder, all guys who can't defend, and sure enough, they're a bottom 3 defensive team. You can't also be a bottom 5 offensive team, but that's exactly what's happening. We've seen Doug Christie, their head coach, call out their effort. Really, if Minnesota just does what they're supposed to do, defends the three-point line decently, which the Kings don't shoot a ton of threes, but they're 11th in percentage. It's really the only area that they're sniffing the top 10 other than pace in any number. Minnesota should be just fine in this game. And there's really no excuse for it to be a very close game at all. The Nuggets game Saturday, as I mentioned off the top of the show, I really didn't mean to complain immediately when I started the show, but it is the second time the Wolves get the Nuggets, and it is the second time they get the Nuggets on a back-to-back, and Denver hasn't played since Wednesday. So Minnesota will be second night of a back-to-back. Denver will have 2 days rest playing in Minnesota. The first time these teams matched up this season, of course, this was an antless game for Minnesota. It was their first full game with no Anthony Edwards, I believe. I think it was the game right after it was the game right after he got hurt against the Pacers. They were coming off that win. And so no Anthony Edwards for Minnesota, which meant Conley started along with DiVincenzo. They got 25 from Jaden McDaniels and 24 from Julius Randle, and nobody else really came to the party. Naz was good off the bench. He always plays well against Denver, 18-7 for Naz Reid. But they gave up 43 to Jamal Murray. Again, stuff Minnesota's bad at defensively, guarding pick and roll ball handlers, that Jokic Murray pick and roll. Now, the Wolves have been good against rollers. Not, Jokic isn't your typical pick and roll big. He's the best player in the world. So, navigating that's a little bit different. He had 25, 19, and 10 triple-double, a 25, 19, and 10 triple-double against the Wolves last time out. So, obviously having Ant is going to help, and Minnesota matched up really well with Denver the last 2 years, but this is going to be a tough game on the second night of a back-to-back. And guarding Jamal Murray is going to be paramount, of course, but an area that the Wolves have struggled in. Now, Christian Brown, Cam Johnson both left Wednesday's game early against the Clippers. That ended up being a blowout. I don't know. I think at the moment that as I'm recording this, I don't think there's been an injury report for the Nuggets for Saturday's game, which makes sense. So I don't know if they're available. I think they were both listed as day-to-day. We'll see. But overall, similar Nuggets team, right? They're going to shoot a lot of twos, and they're really good at doing it. They get to the free throw line. They offensive rebound. Remember, they've got Valanciunas off the bench now. This is a team that you got to keep off the offensive glass as much as possible. You got to try and defend that mid-range, which we've talked about earlier in the show. It's something the Wolves don't do super well. The Nuggets are really good in the middle of the floor, and it's Murray, and it's Jokic, obviously, it's Brown, it's now Tim Hardaway. So guarding the mid-range is something Minnesota is going to have to improve on a little bit in this game against Denver. And then the defensive glass is going to be huge. Denver defensively is also really good. And in terms of trying to attack them, like, this isn't a game. I wouldn't mind the Wolves trying to play faster against Denver. I know it's playing with fire when it comes to Jokic, because as much as Denver doesn't love to play fast, Jokic can do that better than anybody if he wants to, in terms of creating the open floor, outlet passes, all that stuff. Denver's a good defensive rebounding team, and then they kind of can control the pace from there. So if you're the Wolves, you might want to play a little bit faster. Denver doesn't turn you over all that much, and they do commit some fouls. So that could be a path to success, is if you play a little faster in this game. I should note, Jokic is averaging a triple-double right now as well. So he had a triple-double against the Wolves, but it was actually below his averages. He's averaging 29, 13, and 11. Just crazy town. And by the way, shooting almost 42% for three. So Wolves have their work cut out for them. Denver right now is 9-2, second in the conference. The Wolves are 7-4. They're sixth in the conference. That's Saturday's game. Of course, the live postcast with Jack and Luke will be on the Locked On Wolves YouTube channel, both after the game tonight as well as tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday with kind of a combo post-game pod from Saturday, previewing Monday night's game. Anything notable from the weekend overall, we'll hit that on Monday's show. A big thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen every single day. Of course, this show is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms. A reminder, for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Show with our guy, Josh Lloyd. It's the best fantasy basketball show out there. He'll give you daily tips and help you win your league while making you a smarter NBA fan. You can find the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, just like this show. And of course, Locked On is now the #1 sports podcast network out there. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.